And so now let's progress with our next speaker this afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Rich Mcloughlin, Head of Maritime Engagement, Safetytech Accelerator. Rich, over to you.
Thanks very much, and pleasure to be here this afternoon, getting on towards the end of today's session. So happy to be taking the afternoon slot and hopefully give everyone attending a little bit of a view of what we're doing in Safetytech Accelerator, how we're supporting safety critical industries like maritime, and what we're investigating and trying to understand around cargo connectivity and cargo safety on board ships. So I've got about 20 minutes, as is this format, and I've got some really good examples for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Safetytech Accelerator is, because not very many people are familiar with safety technology accelerators, and they come in different guises and they operate in different ways. So hopefully that's of interest to you. I'm speaking to you here from Southampton in Hampshire and the south coast of the UK, and I'm in the offices of Lloyd's Register. And there's a particular reason for that, because Safetytech Accelerator was established by Lloyd's Register in 2018, and with the purpose of exploring how we can use new technologies to enhance the safety of people at sea, and of course in other critical industries. Given our heritage, of course, there is a particular focus on maritime. And everything that we do is about safety and de-risking operations. So I'm going to give a little background about that. As I mentioned, we've been going since 2018, and we've had some fantastic engagement across different industrial verticals, with some 50-odd clients engaged. And when we look at those numbers in terms of the impact that we're making as a relatively small team, part of Lloyd's Register Group, but operating with autonomy within that, so that we basically follow the opportunities for technology. We get engaged with different industrial sectors and clients, but equally in the maritime area and the piloting that we're doing. That's our sort of, our principal aim is to get practical, robust, readily deployable technologies out into industry and trialed. And then, of course, as we've been doing that, we've been collecting more and more information about the emerging technologies and building our own ecosystem of technology companies. Just a very graphic sort of presentation, really, of those industry verticals, whether it's from the nuclear sector, in mining, or in food, in civil construction, or the chemical industry. We've had engagement with clients who are looking to solve particular challenges. So that helping corporate partners understand their best options, helping them strategize about technologies that they want, that are of interest and are most likely to have impact on their operations. Equally, with non-commercial organizations, we've been supporting them, whether it's the Health and Safety Executive here or the National Safety Council in America. We've been helping lift the lid really on what technologies can bring to their sectors. An example of that is when we've run a regulatory sandbox, bringing together industry, technology companies and the regulator to form a clear understanding of the future for regulations and technology adoption. We support entrepreneurs, startups, companies who are looking for a way into a market, helping them with their value proposition, and building up their sort of credibility so that they can achieve some market penetration. Everything that we do, we talk about openly, and if you visit our website, you'll see many of the examples that we're doing. And exactly here today, trying to bring sort of a wide awareness of these activities and the business challenges that we're working on around safety, operational risks, and more about the business performance and business resilience as we go through some really interesting times in maritime on the decarb front, and of course how businesses are transiting to sort of more digital operations. Aspects there, including sustainability that we look at, and the role of technologies. Very small team, very proud, and we definitely punch above our weight in terms of the activities that we do. The link in the top left here to Lloyd's Register is through the CTO here, so no more about that. But it's important that you recognise that we tend to be a challenge-based accelerator. There's no venture capital arm of Safetytech Accelerator. We don't invest in these technology companies. We simply focus on the clients, understanding their needs, and developing a challenge brief from which we go and source, scout for, and then doing the necessary due diligence before showcasing these technologies. So getting that done is a challenge. There's lots of risks and pitfalls for companies. And basically, we've built up established frameworks and mechanisms for doing that, that can turn that around in a much quicker time for organizations to get great visibility about the technologies that are out there. So based in the UK, but with a global footprint. I said we're industry agnostic, we're technology agnostic as well. So when we do that challenge brief that I talked about, we find technology from medicine, from defense industries, from retail, really interesting, and some great examples here that we've seen now coming to the fore. Visual analytics, for example, the development of low-cost sensors for assets and wearables for people, etc., and various other technologies. Of course, all the time we've got the overlay of machine learning and artificial intelligence. So incredibly interesting times that we have here. And I think that's, we'll come on, of course, to the cargo safe aspects at the moment, the cargo monitoring. But just before that, we get to that, these are really those principal ways in which we're working with organizations. That strategic part at the front, understanding the opportunities, the timeframes, organizational aspirations, and how to match those technologies in time to those aspirations through a roadmap. That's the strategic part. Equally, we've been running innovation labs for organizations, large internationals, and so that building up of the requirements is a key part to our business. The principal work that we do, the core of our acceleration programs, is about that scouting for activities, the due diligence, the running of feasibility studies and pilots, so that we de-risk the innovation activities, making sure that the requirements are met and we get innovative, cost-effective, robust solutions into industry and maritime, of course, in this instance. The last thing here is that evolving out of our one-to-one experience in working with clients, we are now being able to bring together stakeholders to work on innovation initiatives together. So this is where there are common problems or challenges in that industry, and where collaboration is seen as a really key part to get that done together. The example that I'll give you, and we actually have two here, and yes, there are ESG angles to all of this, of course, and the value here is very much about sharing of information and sharing of knowledge about technology, whether people have tried things in the past, what's worked for them, what hasn't, where they see the future. So we have two at the moment, one running around methane emissions and looking at technologies from in the supply chain to look at fugitive emissions, but also in the stacks of ships to understand and accurately measure the methane slip from engines. The second part of that is also looking at abatement technologies. But the main thing I want to focus on here, and I'll give you a little snippet of example because it is entirely related to cargo monitoring, and that's the Cargo Fire and Loss Innovation Initiative, where stakeholders have come together and through this framework arrangement have formed a steering group and acting as anchor partners in the initiative. They are setting Safetytech Accelerator the challenges that they want to focus on. And as you're very much aware, I'm sure that in supply chains at the moment, there's a lot of concern about high-risk cargoes, and there's been a number of very major incidences in shipping in the last decade. So they tasked us with how can we get to understand the condition of the cargo, how can we understand if there is a potential heating event or a fire event occurring within the holds of container ships. An incredibly difficult and challenging area. But we've been very successful over the last 9 to 12 months in bringing together those requirements and finding technologies that we believe are of interest here for cargo monitoring. Equally on the deck, the second challenge area where there's currently a regulatory gap, in my opinion, is the detection of fires on the decks of container ships. So I'm going to very briefly just show you, I hope, as a blank slide, technologies of interest that we found. You'll notice here, if I start on top right, the industrial Internet of Things, very much hyped in over previous years. But right now we're seeing a real change in how industry is taking up these technologies, ruggedized versions, improving connectivity, which I'll talk about soon, and how these can be applied in very challenging situations. Our searchers have come across things that you would expect, traditional gas sensing, but also equally other emerging technologies looking at chemical signatures, so-called e-noses and so on. There are also other industry technologies which are not yet applied in maritime, which are in use, so we're exploring the potential for those together with the anchor partners. I'm not going to say that there's an absolute solution, but in combination, we are working together to find out the best options, which is very exciting. And that links us to technology innovation for safe cargo transportation. I talked about fires. I talked about high-risk cargoes. We also have occasions when we have rough handling of cargo leakage, the potential for self-ignition and explosion, and all of those secondary effects that people who are naval architects understand about as we flood cargo holds, as we introduce free surface, as we basically contaminate water that then needs to be dealt with at another time. There's all sorts of structural loading that may be placed on a vessel leading to structural failure. So the knock-on effects for fire and firefighting on board a ship shouldn't be overlooked, of course. Issues around the cargo, about the declaration of what the cargo is linked, of course, into this. But if we don't have right packaging and securing of cargoes, we can have shift of those cargoes during a transit. That, of course, is not just containerized package forms of cargo, but we can have bulk cargoes movement, we can have vehicles movement, and again, secondary effects there. We can lose containers overboard, and of course, for certain cargoes, bulk cargoes, we can have cargo liquefaction. Damage can occur during the handling of these cargoes, vibrations, shock. We can have perishable goods in there, subject to changes in temperature, humidity. Those temperatures of containers particularly are quite surprisingly high. And of course, we can have self-ignition of some cargoes as a result of elevated temperatures. So lots of secondary effects in there, and of course, lots of environmental impact in cargo. So this is totally an area where shippers, cargo owners, insurers, and shipping companies are interested in reducing, interested in understanding the risks of the cargoes they have, and interested in monitoring those cargoes during the sea passage. So those demands driving, the need to understand the condition of the cargo, safety and risk, and those impacts on sustainable environmental and sustainability targets. the insurance risk. How could we understand, again, the condition? How can the ship's crew be aware of the condition of the cargo? Does that allow them to take any preventative actions where we have a potential incident or likelihood of an incident? If we do have an incident, how can understanding of the cargo help us in making an adequate emergency response? And if we do have an incident, are we collecting data and information that can help us with incident investigation? Those areas on the safety and risk. And the digitalization, of course, we want to understand how efficient we are. Can we do something about reducing administrative burden on the ship's crew or on the shore side? Are we understanding how many ton miles that we're doing for scope emissions? And generally, there is a need to connect through the supply chain and make sure that we have visibility of where our cargo is. That links to the development of new services, commercial services by industry, and new service revenue. So those are the drivers that I'm thinking here. But equally, there's some interesting contributing aspects here. One of them, for example, related to crew welfare. And there's a very interesting comment here from the CEO of Anglo Eastern. Those connectivity providers that are mentioned here are enabling those technologies. So these is what people are terming as pivot points, and as we see them applied in maritime, we see satellite communications increasing bandwidth. The burgeoning development of low Earth orbit satellites, and that Starlink is now going at 8,000 towards 9,000 users, picking up incredible market share in this area. So a lot of competition for communications, and this is enabling the onboard connectivity solutions that can facilitate the transfer of data. Now, you can argue, of course, about the reliability of some of this connectivity, and should this be used for safety systems. I think there is an opportunity to explore this, and if we are able to get indications of a leading indication of a incident, then I think we should be informing the crew of this where possible. Of course, the industrial Internet of Things and the devices, the development, the reduction in costs, the increasing usage of these devices is another enabler here in other industries. And of course, we see those technology companies looking to maritime, looking to see what they can do. And we see more, of course, accelerators like ourselves in the maritime space looking to support that technology adoption. So lots of opportunities for cargo monitoring. And of course, there are other connecting use cases here as well, which I won't, for the sake of time, go into too much. So I'll briefly move on to some of the things that we're finding. I mentioned the industrial IoT solutions and those low-cost developments. So really interesting here as we look at distributed network systems, as we look at placing sensors within cargo. We look at what's happening in the aviation industry about how we're getting printed material with a temperature sensor capable of connecting to a router. All of these things are helping us to get cheaper solutions that can really give us some valuable insight and intelligence about the cargo. So lots of funding and development. I could give you an example here of technologies that we've sourced from who are related to forest fires, for example. So a lot of investment going into that, into understanding when a forest fire might be occurring, and how to predict that, how to measure that. So sensors coming from there. Also the sensing principles. around temperature, visual, talked about infrared and visual analytics, but also around the smell. We've had some interesting technology experience around the use of radio waves, so another sensing principle, and of course the sensitivity and precision that we're able to achieve. Overlaying that, we see, of course, machine learning and AI. And this is really opening up a lot in that early stage fire detection or monitoring of cargoes. And we see here certain challenges around understanding operational context, removing false positives, false negatives. But overall, in the direction of travel, we only see this as a positive thing. So, in terms of ship building, ship design, connectivity and operations, lots of things happening here. Certainly see greater supply chain visibility, impact on the crew, increased efficiencies on board, improved incident response. For ship designers, I think, and systems designers, we have to think about this increased sensor estate, about how it might how there may be means to connect between these and to derive a better understanding of the operational context, how the AI is overlaying over these systems and the asset, and then, of course, the regulatory involvement here, so that we don't have prescriptive rules stifling the innovation and the development of new ideas, new approaches, new ways of working, based on a risk-based approach. We think we have a role, of course, lots of challenges here. Technology is a clear role. We certainly believe in collaboration and the bringing together of ideas for this. I mentioned our initiative that we're running, and I think here I'd also like to think about how we maybe trial those on something that might be analogous to a green corridor, a cargo safe corridor, as a sort of an aspiration to leave you with. So I hope I've given enough pickup for strategic innovation in maritime and the role it can play. If you'd like to find out more about us, of course, please visit our website or get in touch. Thank you.
Rich, thank you very, very much indeed. Just time for maybe a couple of short questions. You talked about the importance of sharing knowledge, collaboration, bringing ideas together. How open are organisations to sharing their experiences, and how do you go about managing those relationships to get the best knowledge transfer?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think there are certain things you have to look at what's driving the interest here. If I think about the collaborative initiative around methane, and the measurement of that, and understanding the significance, the drivers there are really across the industry. They want to do this. They want to not just change perceptions, but they actually want to get an accurate measurement of that. So that's a really significant thing that everybody there is concerned about. So collaborating on that is good for the industry, their particular segment. And in the same way, maritime doesn't want to see containers overboard. It doesn't want to see things on fire. Everybody has a role to play in that. I know that there are disjointed regulatory regimes in the supply chain itself. We have a lot of codes and so on, but we still end up with these results. Everybody who's part of that has got a role to play in saying, this is a safe and efficient means of transportation, and that we are active in doing something about it. So having that openness to be saying, yes, we're doing something about it, wanting to be seen to doing about it, and making sure that, it's, we talk about antitrust and all the rest of these kind of things, but actually safety, it should not be a competitive thing. And our experiences of working with the companies that we're working with is that's their general view, and it doesn't seem to be a problem for them.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I think we're probably going to need to leave it there. Thank you again for your excellent presentation and your contribution
You're welcome. Thank you.
today. And we'll have to say goodbye. Thank you.
Bye for now.